you. As the prosecutor finished, she said, "This is shocking, unthinkable." I believe there were other words used throughout trial. Unbelievable. Obviously, unbelievable, unthinkable, unfathomable. And the reason that's the case is because it was unforeseeable. No one expected this. No one could have expected this, including Mrs. Crumbley. Now, the first thing I want to do very quickly is talk to you about the burden of proof. In the state of Michigan, there are different burden of proofs depending on what kind of a case it is. When people sue for money and say, "I've been injured," or "I was failed by the school even," there will be civil lawsuits, and the burden of proof is a preponderance of evidence. That means it's about a 50-50 standard. And if you have 50% of the evidence, that's the burden of proof for civil. When the state thinks it's important to take away a person's children, the burden goes up, and the burden has to prove more evidence, and that specifically is clear and convincing evidence that it's correct for the state to be taking away a person's children. Now, the highest burden in this country is in a criminal case, and that is beyond a reasonable doubt. And the reason I'm telling you about the differences in the burdens is because in a criminal case, if you have just one reasonable doubt about the case, you must vote not guilty. And so this is my poster just showing beyond a reasonable doubt is guilty, but there's many, many other options. If you think it's likely, probable, possible, not likely, those are all not guilties. You have to be sure beyond a reasonable doubt. And later, as I go through my closing, I am going to tell you the reasonable doubts that the defense believes exist in this case for you to look at. The other thing I have to ask you to keep in mind is that in the jury instructions, and I think you've been told this throughout trial, the defense does not have to prove or do anything. Like Judge Matthews said, we could sit at the table and play chess the whole time, call no witnesses, cross-examine no witnesses, provide no evidence, because we have no burden to prove a thing. However, in this case, you obviously saw the defense present Mrs. Crumbley, who took the stand, so that she could give you some context beyond parts of the evidence that were confusing when the prosecutor was introducing in bits and pieces. And the problem in this case is that we can all agree everything can be seen different in two ways. First of all, when you look back in hindsight with 20/20 vision, when you look back in hindsight, it is easy to say, this could have been different, that could have been different, this would have changed. And the other circumstance, the second one that makes a huge difference, is when you get full context around the evidence that is being used. And in this case, the prosecutor has cherry-picked little bits of evidence out of mountains of evidence to put in front of you with no context to explain what they're doing. And when you get cherry-picked bits of evidence, it's easy to reach wrong conclusions. Now, during jury selection, it felt like the prosecutor was asking you questions and giving more of a campaign speech than a jury selection proceeding. And I would suggest to you that at the end of the day, the only judge, although Ms. McDonald mentioned she's been a judge and was a judge several times during her jury selection, the only judge in this courtroom that matters is Judge Matthews. And the only other people whose judgment matters are the 12 of you who will collectively decide this case. The rest of us don't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. Ms. McDonald's doesn't matter. The opinions of everyone in this audience doesn't matter. The media, and all of the people who think they know everything behind keyboards at home commenting about what they think the evidence in this case has shown. So during this case, it's obvious real life is messy and complicated. And during this trial, I will openly admit that I'm a lawyer who messes up. I get thrown off when I'm surprised by something. I feel like I get overwhelmed when information is coming at me quickly. I say I'm sorry a lot. Evidently, there's a TikTok channel of me saying I'm sorry through this whole trial. And all I'm saying is that I'm human. I am a human being, and so is Mrs. Crumbley. And that's what this case is about. She's not a perfect person or a perfect parent. I'm certainly not a perfect person or a perfect parent, and I'm certainly, beyond a reasonable doubt, bad with technology, which is why you're not going to see me touch that laptop. So during this trial, I have stood before you and shown you all my flaws, and I embrace them, and they are a part of what makes me human. And so has Jennifer Crumbley. She got on the stand and talked about every nook and cranny of her life, things no one else in the world knew, in her family, among her friends. And she wanted you to see the whole truth, the entire truth, and nothing but the truth on everything, where she had to show you that she has made immoral decisions to have an affair, that she has made decisions you might not make to have another person involved in the affair. Now, we didn't get too far into the details, but it was enough for you to know that Mrs. Crumbley got up there and literally stripped off her armor, let the prosecution cross-examine her, and show you what happened in her messy life. And I say that with all kindness because I'm a mess too. I saw a meme about a week ago that said, I'm trying to be a mom, trying to get exercised, stay hydrated, get enough sleep, text everyone back, and not lose my shit. And I've got to be honest, as a mom, a working mom, on most days, I'm lucky if I'm fit for human contact. I'm lucky if I've taken a true shower and didn't just grab a handful of wipes and scrub off the best I can on my way running out the door, putting on my makeup as I drive to court in my car. Because my life is not perfect and no one's is. And during this trial, you may have concluded that you don't like me, that you hate me. That's fine. I am just asking that your opinions about me as a person, and if you're one of the people who plans to make a TikTok about me, that you won't hold those opinions against Jennifer Crumbley and will judge Jennifer Crumbley's case based on the evidence about her and her family. And if you hate her or don't like her or agree with things she's done, that's okay too. You don't have to like her. You are not expected to go hang out with her when this is all over. After trial, you don't have to decide if you want to go to her house. You don't have to have Thanksgiving with her. But when you're looking at the evidence in this case, it's important to set aside your opinions of her or take your opinions of me and supplant them on Mrs. Crumbley.